Welcome to Business Talk with me, Michael Avery, right here on businesstech.co.za. And today we're tackling, I think, one of the most pressing and underappreciated financial risks facing South Africans: income protection, or more importantly, what happens when your ability to earn an income stops for whatever reason, and more specifically, why women are disproportionately vulnerable when it comes to job loss and underinsurance. Liberty's 2024 claim stats reveal a very stark reality. Nearly 2/3 of retrenchment claims came from women, despite men and women taking out income protection cover in almost equal measure. And I think that translates into a staggering 15 trillion rand with a T protection gap for women in South Africa. And to unpack what's driving this imbalance and what it means for financial security, and more importantly, how we turn that around, how we adapt, I'm joined by Kresantha Pillay, who's Chief Specialist for Risk Products at Liberty, with over 2 decades experience in product development and valuations and reinsurance, and someone who's really passionate about financial freedom for all South Africans. So Kresantha, great pleasure to have you on Business Talk. Let's just start with the data. Liberty's claim stats for 2024 show that it's a full 2/3 of retrenchment claims came from women versus just 1/3 for men. What's driving this imbalance, given the uptake of retrenchment cover is almost equal across genders?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite startling, right? Being a woman myself, it just emphasizes a need for, adequate risk protection, and there could be a number of reasons for this. And Michael, if you look at historically, men typically made these financial decisions, right? And females were responsible for all the caregiving. But worldwide, 2025, there are more female-headed households. So the landscape has changed, and we need to take more responsibility for those financial decisions.
And if you look at the demographics, what really stands out for me, I'm just on the other side of 44 at the moment, just recently turned 45, but that 35 to 44 age group of women seems to be the most impacted. And if you think about it, that's a time that's defined by your career progression, your family responsibilities, very important time. Why do you see this group particularly vulnerable? And what does it tell us about the kind of intersection of work and caregiving at such a critical career and life juncture?
Absolutely. So the stats actually reveal that the biggest claims comes from this age group when it comes to females. We've seen over 38% of claims when you compare it to about 16% for males. And as you so rightly say, it's quite a pivotal stage in a lady's life. I mean, you're caring for kids, you're climbing up that corporate ladder. So you need to protect that income that is so important. Interestingly as well, we find when we look at women and what they spend their money on, despite what people think, it's not just the shoes and handbags. We actually spend our money on essential things, groceries, education for the kids. So it's very much, that community resilience. So if my income is impacted, it's not just affecting me, it's actually affecting my entire, my entire family.
Yeah, and it also ties in. I chat to a lot of startup incubators and people who study entrepreneurship. And if you look at the entrepreneurial trends, there's an outsized impact if you invest in female-led startups and entrepreneurs, because they give back to communities, because they are giving back to families as well. And it comes through in this as well. If we broaden our lens a bit, the systemic challenge isn't just a local one. So how does South Africa's experience compare with global trends?
Yeah, absolutely. This is not unusual. We mirror the global trends. The International Labour Organization, the World Economic Forum, they actually cite that females find themselves in informal sectors or part-time jobs or, lower paying jobs. So when there's an economic downturn, we are the most vulnerable. COVID was an example, right? So in 2020, the US, we found that over just under 5.5 million females lost their jobs. It speaks again to that job vulnerability, and it's not a blip in the stats. It's a trend. We've seen it over the years.
So given that, and given that we're not unique in this, And the stat that I mentioned earlier was staggering when I first read it. 15 trillion rand insurance shortfall for South African women, according to ASISA, which is the Association for Savings and Investments. What are the key reasons that women remain more underinsured than men, even when access to products is available? Is it because they feel they don't have the disposable income to invest in this because the pressure is on to pay for the education and everything else? I mean, what are your insights into why we're seeing this big underinsurance gap?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, affordability is a top of mind for all South Africans, not just females. And given then, we use a lot of our income for what we mentioned earlier. Affordability is a key question. But further to that, I mean, we all know though the financial services industry is a very male dominated industry. And perhaps there's a lack of connection to the female clients out there. We actually need to understand their unique needs, their journeys. I had an interesting story that I wouldn't mind sharing. So I chatted with a female financial advisor a few weeks ago, and she told me that she's done really well with selling to other female clients, and her strategy is, you walk into this appointment, often the ladies juggling cooking, homework, maybe a little bit of work at the same time. So she actually meets them during dinner time while she's prepping a meal. She brings in a salad that saves her client a bit of time there, and they talk about the financial side of things. And I thought that was excellent, right? It's all about time efficiency with us.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And meeting women where they are. And I think, we often talk about customer centricity. And I think the insurance industry, to some extent, has maybe been a little bit behind the curve in this revolution. I mean, you look at the way Jeff Bezos at Amazon said, we're going to design everything around the customer, how successful they've been. And this is reframing product design, I guess, for the insurance industry to meet women where they are. So how can insurers move away from a one size fits all kind of solution and start designing products that reflect those lived realities? So having to cook the dinner, do the homework, the non-linear career paths, all of those things, do make the product design for women unique.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the foundation, right? We have to sell products that actually meet our clients' needs. So one particular product we have at Liberty is our female living lifestyle product. And what this does is really looks at events like, birth complications, congenital defects, and we look at all of that. And it serves a purpose. I mean, we have a very comprehensive cancer benefit. As part of that is your stage 1 breast cancer, which also is pretty prominent claims score. So it's fundamental. That's like the foundation. You need to ensure that our products serve the needs of our clients. But equally important is how we actually sell it, right? We need to sell it in a way that's conducive, that is easy to understand. So a little bit of education and awareness of the risk is also pretty crucial in reducing that insurance gap.
And my partner, it's interesting, Kresantha, she actually had dread disease and disability cover through a group scheme, which was administered by Liberty when I was working at Classic FM. She suffered cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, severe stroke, bleed on the brain. And fortunately, she's managed to make a full recovery. It was a long road to get there, lots of rehab and, very expensive doctor's bills. It was all covered, thankfully. And now she can still draw an income because, there are parts of her job that sadly she just can't do anymore. So the importance of having this in place. And here's the kicker. She was so fit. She used to run 10Ks, every second weekend. She was always at the gym, one of those diamond members, a real overachiever that makes me look terrible, actually. But it can happen to anyone. It came down to good advice, though. And I think the role of trust and advice is so important. It's still an industry that I think is male dominated. And to your point, female advisors have a real opportunity here to make a big difference, don't they?
No, absolutely. I think the time is now, right? We no longer the niche market. We pretty much mainstream. I think we have a responsibility as the industry to active intent, right? And meet our clients where they are.
So if you look at that, how much if you get the right female advisor, redesigning for a woman's lived experience, so that with the right product, how much is then it just about distribution? And I know distribution in the insurance industry is a big part of the battle, because it isn't something you jump out of bed and say, oh, I'm going to go buy life insurance, or I'm going to go buy dread disease cover. It is something that is still very much sold. So if you look at technology and digital tools reshaping how we access and use insurance, how can technology then be leveraged to make risk products more inclusive, more accessible, and more tailored specifically for women?
So I think it's a mix, right? It's so important to have that financial advisor sitting with you, going through it, because it is pretty complex. You need a human. You need a human to explain the technicalities of it. But definitely having tech to aid this education piece of it would play in hands in hands.
If we were just to zoom out from this and we talk about South Africa's economic resilience, or rather the lack of it, I mean, we just see it at a geopolitical level with Trump's tariffs. And, if it's going to knock 0.4% off GDP, if you're growing at 3-4%, it's not a problem. We're growing at only 0.9%. So we don't have that economic resilience. If we close this protection gap, what could it mean, not just for households, but for South Africa's broader economic resilience?
Look, if you close this protection gap, it's quite powerful, because you don't, for example, if you're protecting against your income, you don't have a break in your income. It goes down the line. Your kids can continue school. They can continue their education, go on to jobs. You don't need to dip into your retirement savings, which many of us still don't have enough despite our best efforts. It's such a knock-on effect that, making the right decisions the earlier you can as possible. I mean, it's never easy balancing the short-term needs versus long-term goals, and hence the crash purchase with insurance. But getting that balance right now will prevent those knock-on effects down the line, which is very hard to actually come down.
Well, but that is, that's the point of insurance, and why, you may think, oh, it's a grudge purchase. But Murphy's Law is the day you don't decide to take it, something happens. And then what do you do?
Absolutely.
What do you do in a country where unemployment is rampant? To find a new job is so difficult, and there's so many other things, unknowns, that we can't plan for. And I think ultimately, if you're responsible as a caregiver for a family, it really is part of your responsibility to ensure that you can continue to do that, even if something should happen to you. So if you had one message for insurers, for advisors, and policymakers on addressing this issue with urgency, what would it be?
I think the time is now. We need to act with urgency. I mean, that 15 trillion rand insurance gap is huge. Females play a pivotal role in our community, and helping them build their resilience is actually helping build the greater community resilience.
Well, Kresantha Pillay, thank you very much, Chief Specialist for Risk Products at Liberty, for shining a light, a very important light, a spotlight on the realities behind South Africa's 15 trillion rand protection gap for women. The numbers certainly tell a very sobering story, but they also highlight, I think, a massive opportunity for the insurance industry to innovate, for advisors to engage differently, and for society to recognize that protecting women's income isn't just a financial issue, but it's an all of society, deeply economic issue as well. I'm Michael Avery, and you've been watching Business Talk on businesstech.co.za.